Welcome, I'm Karen Sawyer, and welcome to this special inaugural edition of Ask the Town Manager. And it's a special edition because it's the first one on Reading Community Television, Channel 9. And tonight's been the inaugural evening. And I hope you've been with us because it's been a lot of fun so far. And hopefully it's been a lot of fun for everyone at home, too. Lots of new things to see and do. And come on down and be a part of it here at Reading Community Television, Channel 9. And tonight is Thursday, April 1st, and this will be a live call-in show, and only for Thursday, April 1st. And the number here is 944-8888. And now again, that's a brand new number for Reading Community Television at Channel 9, 944-8888. So again, I hope you will join us and join myself and Peter as well, and welcome Peter Heckenbleckner back to the studio. And actually, it's been a while. It's been a few shows since Peter and I have been together, so I'm glad to be back and be back working with Peter again here on Ask the Town Manager. And we have a lot for you tonight. And actually, as you know, it's a one-hour show. And generally, we go for half an hour, just Peter and I, with phone calls from folks at home with questions, and usually a guest in the second half hour. And tonight's a little different. I always call it Peter's prerogative. It's his prerogative to take the whole hour for himself, and we'll do that tonight and bring you a guest on our next show, our next edition. So I'd like to welcome Peter to the show.
Thank you, Karen.
So good to see you again.
Nice to see you,
so,
too.
I know you've always been busy. Sometimes I never know what to ask you because you're always busy. So.
Well, it's a very busy town. I sometimes sit back and reflect and think, how can a town that's 350 years old, that has been around so long, have so much going on? But it does, because the community demands a lot and wants a lot and expects a lot. So keep busy.
Okay. Yeah,
I just like to say welcome to Channel 9 now, our Reading Cable TV, community TV, and hope that this experiment in broadcast journalism for Reading as a community access corporation is a very successful one. This is the first day, and we've got about 9.5 years left to go on this franchise with Media One, and I know it will be a success. I know the volunteers and the staff here have worked very hard. A lot of them have been with the system for a while, like yourself, Karen, and hopefully we'll get some new people and have a really nice program. And I wish I could do all my projects the way this one is being done, because this one is in 2 months ahead of schedule. So that's
right.
terrific.
That's right. I know. That's a bonus, a definite bonus. So, and well, what I'd like to do is I do every show is share with the viewing audience our agenda for tonight. So if you'd like to prepare questions, or even if you want to have a question that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, that's fine too. So let me share with you the agenda we have. First of all, I'll talk about the Millennium Celebration that's being planned, and I do want to mention to you that I think if you were watching our election coverage, we said Anna Carol Foles would be our guest tonight, and actually she's going to be our guest on the next show. So stay tuned for Anna. And we'll also talk about diversity issues, as well as the potential land acquisition on Mill Street, and updates on the various construction projects. We always have those on the agenda, and often we don't get to them. And this time we're going to get to them because we know folks have lots of questions on their minds at this point, being spring and all. So, and also lots of projects in the pipeline. Let you know what's coming up for spring and how it might impact you as in the community. And then the second half of the show is Peter's going to walk us through the 1999 annual town meeting, a preview. So if your town meeting is going to be starting very shortly, I believe April 12th.
That's correct.
And just to get informed about what the different articles are in the warrant, so you could lobby your town meeting member to speak on your behalf, or just go and take it all in and become part of it as best you can. So that'll be the second half of the show. So I'd like to invite Peter to just kick it off with the Millennium Celebration.
Sure. Well, actually, the only thing I wanted to mention is what you said, and that is that Anna was going to be here this evening, but she had to take a rain check, and so we will have her in on the next meeting. And I think, really spend some time talking about some of the Millennium Celebration ideas. There's some very exciting things, some very ambitious programs. So, stay here in Reading for the Millennium. You don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to go to first night in Boston. You can stay right here and have a great time with your friends and neighbors. And Anna will fill us in a lot of detail next time.
Well, actually, from what I understand, the website has gotten a couple of emails from folks who just happened to be cruising through and saw the website, and one from Illinois that said, well, we've never been to Boston, so there's a good excuse to the Reading celebration. Sounds great. And another one from Canada. So, and folks who are actually originally from Australia who said, gee, this sounds great. We've never been to Boston. We're going to take in the Reading festivities as well, so that's pretty exciting stuff.
Great.
So, now diversity issues in community education. I know again there has been a lot in the paper recently, and if you could just summarize for folks at home, and then talk about the diversity in community education.
Well, of course, if you caught the last Selectmen's Forum, that was, I think, within a week after some of the Boston Globe articles about police department issues, and. We've done a lot of kind of soul searching and thinking as a community and community leadership about the issues of racism, and it's not just really racism. It's an issue of diversity and whether or not this community accepts people who may be different than the norm in this community. And the Reading School Department, I know, does a tremendous amount of work on that issue. They've had trainers in with particularly the middle and high school. Faculty and staff, and have spent a lot of time dealing with the issue. And it's just, I think, been sort of an invisible issue to folks in Reading, both us and the official government, and I think really to the community, until something kind of leaps up and slaps you in the face and says, maybe we ought to think about this. So the Reading Clergy Association is a wonderful group. It's actually fairly unusual, I think, that a community has their clergy as cohesive as ours are in Reading. And I met with them and got some ideas from them. I've talked to a number of consultants about trying to develop some kind of a community awareness program about diversity. All diversity is, from my perspective, and I'm certainly not an expert in it, but is really having a respect for people as individuals and not typecasting somebody because they're gay or straight or white, black, or Asian, or have a handicap or don't have a handicap, or whatever it might be. It's just accepting people and respecting people for what they are, whatever they are. And I think generally as a community we do that. I think Reading has supported a lot of programs. The Understanding Handicaps program is a volunteer organization for a number of years, and now sort of mainstreamed into the school department. We took our whole town staff several years ago to a training by Understanding Handicaps, and people still talk about it as to what a wonderful program it was and how much they learned from it. And the Medco program has been very well supported by Reading. I know Linfield has had some discussion about it, and I think they're going through their own exploration of diversity issues with that. But in Reading, every once in a while, somebody in town meeting moves to eliminate the Medco program, and it overwhelmingly is defeated. Overwhelmingly, people support the Medco program. So, my sense is, as a community, that we do respect diversity, but it's never a bad thing, I think, to pick up a mirror and look in it as a community and see if there's more that we can do and should do. Not necessarily to change the community, but to really kind of explore our attitudes towards issues of diversity. So what we're going to be doing is putting together some kind of a training program, and I'm still talking with some people to find out what the best way to do it is. But to initially go through a training program of the leadership in the community, the elected boards, committees, and commissions in town, and senior staff members, for a number of reasons, among them really to set an example and say, this is something that we as a community need to do. The Clergy Association is talking about doing a program for a month sometime in the fall on diversity, where sort of sermons and publications from all of the religious institutions in the community are coordinated around that issue, which I think is an exciting way to reach out to the community, much more effective than we as a town government can do, I think. To try to just re-ingrain in ourselves, if that's the right terminology, the need for diversity in the community and the need to respect diversity. So in a sense, it's exciting. It's unfortunate and disappointing that it kind of leapt up at us as it did. What's particularly unfortunate, I think, is that the police department particularly has sort of been painted with a brush based on no fact and based on no investigation, and I think that's very unfortunate for anybody. Nobody would like to have that happen to them. But you know, making the good out of the unfortunate, I think it's worth doing this exploration. And you know, that training will go throughout the workforce in town, but we're going to start at the top levels initially, and just to set the example and make sure that the community leadership understands what diversity is and can deal with it.
I know from in the past, there's a lot of, in companies that I've worked for in the past, they've gone through diversity training.
Yeah.
And what you had said about it being just learning to respect individuals for who they are is, I think, is a very healthy way to go at this versus in the past. I know other versions of diversity trainings go through the actual different cultural groups and show you how they're different, and that has been less successful because it sort of points out really the differences rather than saying, well, look over the differences and look at the person and you know, his or herself. So I think it's a very all-encompassing way to go after it.
Well, and I think the important thing is that although the focus has been the Reading Police Department, the focus of this training is not the Reading Police Department. They will certainly be trained along with everybody else, but nobody is accusing or blaming. We're just saying, okay, let's take this as a lesson and all learn from it and improve the way we do business.
Yeah, anybody could have been in that position, so
definitely.
that's important that everybody's trained. So,
Definitely.
okay, well, that's we'll be interested in hearing and getting updates on that. And,
I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of it. In fact, one of the questions that came up as I've talked with trainers is, should we put this on cable TV, on Channel 9?
Okay, yeah.
And I think the sense is that there's probably some of it that can be and should be, and there's probably some of it that shouldn't, because you know, sometimes people would not be as open then if they, and you want an open process and open dialogue, and I think we have to sort of learn our way through this. So I hope some aspect of whatever we wind up with a training program we will have on cable TV, the you know, strategy sessions and that sort of thing. But I think we'll probably not broadcast things where people are just sort of opening up about some of their personal experiences, because if it's on cable TV, you might not have that kind of opening up that I think is important.
Sure. Yeah, I think that just from a knowledge and skill point of view, it's important for the community to know how it's being done, but also for themselves too, because I think really everybody has to look at that. So, okay, all right. Now we're going to move on, if we could, to the potential land acquisition on Mill Street. And again, this has been something that's been in the paper quite a bit.
Well,
recently.
it has, and it's actually something I'm kind of interested in community reaction. I guess let me explain a little bit what the possibility is. It's not even a proposal at this point per se, and you know, either here tonight or you know, calling town hall and leaving messages, I'm kind of interested. The issue is that there's a piece of property. It's about 10 acres on Mill Street. Mill Street, for those of you who aren't as intimately familiar with Reading as I might be, if you go up Main Street past what used to be Marshall's, is now Home Goods, or will be Home Goods in a month. And past the blinker light, which is right where Cedar Glen is, the next left is Mill Street, and it is a sort of rural road. It goes up to Sanborn Village, but it goes beyond that and winds through Reading across the Ipswich River on a brand new bridge, a brand new old bridge actually, and goes up to North Reading. And there's a piece of property there. It's about 10 acres in size. It's right adjacent to the Ipswich River. A developer has acquired it from a former owner, and has proposed a development in it, and it's been very controversial. The Trust for Public Lands, which is a private nonprofit corporation that has a nationwide focus, has been approached and has come in and looked at the property and said, well, you know, we would be interested in helping the community acquire it. And so what they've done is talk with the property owner, tentatively agreed to a price, and they would help the town then go through a process of acquiring the land. It is likely to include a Prop 2.5 override, And that obviously has to be voted on by the voters. It may include a special election. All of this is tentative and has been discussed sort of preliminarily with the Board of Selectmen. The board hasn't said, yes, go ahead with it yet, but is very interested in pursuing it. So it ultimately will come to the voters as to whether or not they want to acquire that piece of land.
Okay, well, this
And
actually,
we're
we have a
kind of
phone
interested.
call, so
Great.
we actually, maybe this is one of those voters.
Okay.
So, hello, welcome to Ask the Town Manager here on Reading Community Television Channel 9. Do you have a question or comment for Peter tonight?
Yes, I do. I was curious to know when, if ever, the Mineral Street Bridge will ever open.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you for your question. I'll give Peter a chance to respond. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's on our list.
Well,
That's
you
on
know,
our list.
there are two bridges in town, the Mineral Street Bridge and the Mill Street Bridge. The Mill Street Bridge came in for construction after Mineral Street, and it's already done.
It's already done, yes.
But the Mineral Street Bridge is on Mineral Street, connecting basically the east side and west side of town across the railroad track. It was started almost 2 years ago. It's not a big project. I mean, it's a couple $1 million, $1.5 million. It was almost done last fall. They ran out of time to do the paving, so we've sat there with a virtually complete bridge, but without all the paving done. What we're told is that on or about April 1st, that's today, they will be back on construction, and it should be about a month's worth of construction. So I would say within about a month or month and a half, the paving work and the curbing work will have been completed, and the bridge should be opened. We're in the process of working with the school department, the police department, to develop an educational program for the school students who use that as a walking route now, primarily Barrow School students and Parker Middle School students, just so they understand that this is going to be a bridge for traffic. There is a sidewalk, use the sidewalk. Here's how to cross, here's where the stop signs are, and so forth. So we will be doing some kind of an educational program, I imagine, right after school vacation. And as I said, we're working with the school department and the police department on that.
Okay.
But you hear all kinds of stories and excuses, and nobody will admit to anything. But what we understand from fairly reliable sources is that the money has been dribbled out for that project to the contractor very slowly, and therefore the contractor is working as fast as the money is available to pay him to work. And
Seems reasonable.
well,
at that
and you look
time, but if
around.
you're
I
a
mean, everybody
contractor-
blames everything on the big dig, and I think it's. I mean,
It was El Nino before, so now it's the big
right.
dig.
It's
so
the big dig,
just-
and it's true. I mean, we have some of the projects on our list, but we've got another project to improve 3 intersections on Main Street, and the contract was awarded almost 2 years ago. There has been
It's
no work
nothing.
done on it at all. Contract's been awarded, but there's been no notice to proceed, which is the technical lingo of how you get from A to B.
Well, maybe that's what our next caller is calling in about.
Could
Let's see. Oh, no, okay, we lost our, well, hopefully they'll call back. So as I say, we'll, and actually I wanted to just tell the folks at home, thank you for calling in. This is important for your phone calls. So hopefully we'll always like to give Peter a chance to finish his thought, and so please hang in there. But again, do call here at Reading Community Television, ask the town manager at 944-8888. That's a brand new number, 944-8888. So hopefully they'll call back. So yeah.
Well,
so
on the
in
land
that sense,
acquisition, as
yeah.
I said, it's interesting. It's going to be a fairly hefty price tag for 10 acres of land.
Okay.
But if you look at Reading, and I know people look at the negative sometimes, and they say, well, they're shoehorning a house in every spare lot. But the town owns an awful lot of open space in this community, and we've done a lot to preserve open space in the past.
Okay, well,
We
hang
have
on
our
to that
callback.
thought. Yes, hopefully, yes. Hello, welcome to Ask the Town Manager here on Reading Community Television, Channel 9. Do you have a question or comment for Peter tonight?
I actually have a couple.
Okay.
I just happened to catch the programming, channel surfing.
Great.
And,
And you were
I also
surprised
had
to
the
see
bridge-
something on Channel 9, huh?
yeah. I also had a couple of observations about the two bridges.
Uh-huh.
First of all, I think the Mineral Street Bridge, albeit slow, I think it's going to be a fine bridge. I'm very impressed with the workmanship and so on. However, on the Mill Street Bridge, way back when they first opened it, when I'm saying way back, which was only recently,
Yes.
but I took a walk down either side, down to the water's edge.
Yes.
And what struck me was the bridge being narrower than I thought maybe they had, the opportunity to take advantage of making it actually wider. It looks like the piers or support piers actually extend out beyond where they could have made the bridge wider.
Yeah.
And I just think in terms of traffic, you know, two cars passing at the same time, maybe somebody on a bicycle, and it just struck me that, you know, being a new bridge, it might have been made wider. And
let me tell you why it wasn't, and you know, we can agree or disagree on whether that was the right decision. That bridge is, if you look at the town seal, which I don't know whether you can see it behind me, but there's a mill in that seal, and that's the old Lobbs Pond Mill, and that mill was actually, that bridge was part of that mill. And I don't know the exact history of it, but it certainly goes back to the 1700s when that mill and bridge were built. And if you got down underneath, you saw the abutment is basically cut stone, it's cut granite. And if you got a chance to actually get down underneath and look up at the underside of the bridge, it's a granite slab bridge. That's what the structural support is. And what we tried to do there is preserve the, first of all, the historic, not exactly the structure, I guess the historic structure is the right description of it, of the bridge. They actually put a very thin coat of reinforced concrete on top for structural purposes, but it was intentionally kept to its original size. It's actually, I think, about 9 inches wider than its original size. And in terms of the area around it, where the old mill park is and the conservation lands and so forth around it, we intentionally did that. Now, it's also, if you look at the area around it, the Mill Street itself is not an essential traffic artery for the region. Main Street, a 4-lane road, is, you know, within 100 yards of it, and you can get to the same place very quickly by using Main Street and Concord Street. So it wasn't like it had to be widened and improved for traffic flow purposes. It was really improved for for structural purposes. So that was the thought process behind it. I mean, I understand what you're saying. We're certainly concerned about safety. I think everybody involved, including our 2 police departments, our departments of public works, our engineering departments, and the Mass Highway Department determined that that kind of reconstruction was appropriate. But
yeah, that seems reasonable up to a point. As you look at the approaches to the bridge, I think especially coming from Main Street, the view is somewhat obstructed.
Yes, it
is.
is.
The way people drive today, it seems like we need all we can get as far as any advantage is concerned.
The other message may be that we need to slow down a little bit.
Well, that's true.
Enjoy the view.
If
but yes, we don't.
If you go out on Route 128 or 93 and you look at the speed limits,
I know.
I'm intimidated when I'm doing 65 miles an hour on Route 93 on the right-hand lane. Okay. Another observation I wanted to comment on was just recently in the paper, I think in the Chronicle, there was an article on the watershed and what's along Concord Street there on the other side of the river.
Yep.
I was surprised to learn of the status and the ranking of that site over there as a chemical waste area. Mm-hmm. And also, we've been reading about the stuff they're putting in gasoline now to cut down on the smog.
TCBE, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That had slipped my mind.
Okay.
But I wondered, do you test for that here in Reading? And it is a known carcinogen.
Yes.
And there's a lot of concern about those types of issues.
Definitely.
It's really a shame about what's happening with our watershed here in Reading.
Mm-hmm.
And,
If I may, I'd like to give Peter an opportunity to comment on that, and thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, I think the watershed issue is a very interesting one. We have a water supply advisory committee that's been established for the specific purpose of looking at our water supply, which is the Ipswich River Basin, town forest area, and to evaluate the options that we have going forward into the next millennium. The options that seem most obvious are to continue the water supply source that we have, to develop another water supply in town, and we've looked at fractured bedrock wells, which is a deep well. Or the third option is to go outside and hook into the MWRA water system, as we did when we had an emergency, and operate that way. Each one of those issues has advantages and disadvantages. I would suggest if you're really interested in it, the Water Supply Task Force is public meetings. In fact, they're meeting this evening down at Town Hall. The meetings are posted and they're in the papers. And you know, they're looking for public input and thoughts and ideas. One of the concerns that the gentleman talks about, and that's why we had the DEP come in and make a presentation, is our supply is a very fragile supply and we don't have control over everything that can happen to it. The gasoline tank spill and what's happening in North Reading are prime illustrations of that. And is that enough reason for us to abandon that as a water supply? I don't know. But it's something that we really need to think about. The time to think about it is now, because we need to do something with our water treatment plant. So before we go out and spend $10 million on a new water treatment plant, if that's what we're going to do, we want to make sure that we're going to have that going forward. It may be better to, you know, to take another water supply. Not that you then don't worry about what happens in the town forest area in North Reading and gasoline spills and so forth, but it has certainly a less deleterious effect on the community than the potential ruination of the water supply. To answer the gentleman's question directly, do we test for TCBE? Absolutely. We test for everything known to mankind, I think, in that water supply. You know, really because of the problem we had with the gas spill.
Okay. Well,
Going back to the Mineral Street Bridge, the quality I think is very good. The town went through a very extensive public design process and we really insisted on good quality. It's a stone-faced abutments and so forth, so it looks good. The contractor's been excellent, and I think that it will be a result that we're very proud of.
Yeah, and I think the education program for the kids using that route for school will be great for I mean, I'm still here today. I grew up in that neighborhood, and when the Middle Street Bridge was operational, and I'm still here today. So I think, but again, to just acclimate the neighbors and the area residents to the fact that the bridge is operational again. So.
Well, you know, when the signal at Prescott and Summer Avenue was initially eliminated while we were doing the reconstruction, we had a crossing guard there because the signal was inactive. And the intent was with a new signal to take the crossing guard out. But we did about, we worked with the school department and our traffic safety officer and the police department, and we did about a month or month and a half of training of the kids after the signal was operational in terms of how you use a walk button, you know, where the walk light is, you have to wait for the walk light and so forth. And I think that's just, it's cautious. It's certainly, you know, it's not required by law. You think everybody knows how to use a walk button, but it's just a conservative approach to change so that you're helping acclimate people to the change that exists. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective. That's for sure a good approach. Anyway, we were almost getting up to break actually.
Okay.
So, and I just want to ask if you had any last comment about the land acquisition. You mentioned about wanting input from folks in town and.
Well, ultimately, if we decide to proceed with it, and the decision is certainly not mine, it's the Board of Selectmen's, but if there is a decision to proceed with it, the voters of the town will have the ultimate say because the only way it would proceed is with a Prop 2.5 override. It would proceed fairly quickly. We're talking about you know, by August 1st, so that's the kind of time frame that we're looking at. The Trust for Public Lands thinks it's a very doable project. They've had a very good success rate in terms of getting issues like this before the public and getting Prop 2.5 overrides done for land acquisition. So any comments you have, you know, we're not anxious to go to the ballot box, I'm sure, and ask people for more money, but on the other hand, in fairly unique and unusual circumstances like this, it may be appropriate, and that may be what the Board of Selectmen decides to do. Yeah,
from what I understand, it could be potentially this parcel could finish what's called some sort of a green necklace or around a green belt or up the Ipswich River.
Well, in Reading, you know, I mean, we talked about North Reading and Reading and the water supply, but it's very interesting if you look at a map and you see the Ipswich River, and virtually the whole frontage in Reading is protected and preserved in some manner, generally in public ownership. And if you look across in North Reading, virtually none of it is. And that's discouraging because the river doesn't just know one side of the river. And the Ipswich River is there as a tremendous resource for water supply, for natural habitat, for recreation potentially, for trailways, for greenways, for just open space. And you know, Reading certainly historically has done its part. And we'll see on this one particular piece of property, maybe we should encourage North Reading to do the same.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks.
And what I'd like to do is right now take a short break, and don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Ask the Town Manager.
couple of our construction crews.
Hello, my name is Alan Folds, your town moderator. Local access television is a great asset to the community through its coverage of town meeting, selectmen, and school committee meetings. It's a great way to keep us all in touch with our local government. I hope you will support RCTV, Reading Community Television.
The countdown to the new millennium is underway, and if you haven't heard, Reading is planning to welcome the year 2000 in style. To raise funds for the Millennium Party, Reading Celebrations Incorporated is selling a colorful limited edition commemorative sweatshirt. Since quantities are limited, hurry down to the sidewalk sale on Haven Street to be the first in your neighborhood to own one of Reading's special Millennium sweatshirts.
Welcome back to Ask the Town Manager. I'm Karen Sawyer here with Peter Heckenbleckner, and we're here on our special inaugural edition of Ask the Town Manager because it's a special evening. It's our first evening of Reading Community Television here on Channel 9. So please keep that in mind. It's Reading Community Television, Channel 9. And thank you for joining us. And hopefully you've been with us for a while and with us for the earlier festivities for the kickoff officially of RCTV. And we're here at the second half of Ask the Town Manager. And what we'd like to do for this part of Ask the Town Manager is a preview of the 1999 annual town meeting. And Peter's going to describe some of the articles that are in this warrant for this town meeting, which starts on April 12th. And if you have any questions at all, questions or comments on either the articles in the warrant or really on anything at all, please do call here at the studio for Reading Community Television at 944-8888. And again, that's a new number. It's 944-8888. And we'll take your call as soon as we can. Usually I'd like to give Peter a chance to finish his thought, and we'll get you on as soon as we can. And actually, wow, that was fast. We have a phone call.
All right.
So, all right. Hi, welcome to Ask the Town Manager. Do you have a question or comment for Peter tonight?
Yes, I do.
Okay, hi.
Peter, this is Joe Santangelo. I'm a member of the CATV committee.
Yes.
But my question does not have to do with that.
Okay.
It has to do with, I haven't heard anything more about the cellular phone problem, both on either end. Could you just, I'll hang up and give us a brief statement.
Sure, I'd
Okay,
be
thank
happy
you.
to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay.
I think what Joe's talking about is the town going back a couple of years ago leased space or licensed the use of our one of our water towers on Auburn Street for cellular communications structures, and there are antennas that are attached to the tower, and we had a public hearing with each one of them and got public input and so forth. The third one that wanted to go up there, which would probably be the last one because of space, was Sprint, and we had a very large public hearing, and residents were by and large opposed to issuing the license. The Board of Selectmen denied the license. A suit has been instigated by Sprint, claiming $1 million in damages for not being allowed to go there and so forth. So the Board of Selectmen has been meeting in executive session with its attorney that's provided by the insurance carrier and with town council, and has been discussing what the options are with regard to that case. It's been an executive session, it's litigation, obviously I can't speak any more to it. You know, if anything is done that, you know, can obviously come out to the public, then the selectmen's meeting would be the proper time frame for that.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you. And
So town meeting.
Yeah, town meeting. Where do we? Well, how many articles this town meeting?
25 articles. Let me just tell you, just for a minute, we have a representative town meeting in Reading. There are two forms of town meeting: an open town meeting where any voter can come and vote, and a representative town meeting where you go to the annual town election, which was the 23rd of March in Reading this year, and vote representatives to town meetings. So you're voting your legislature, basically. It's like
Okay.
voting for Congress, but it's your local legislative body. And town meeting basically has two responsibilities. They pass laws and they appropriate funds. That's basically what they do. You know, it's the oldest form of democracy in the world that's still operating. It's unique to New England, and with the goods and bads to that. There are 25 articles on the warrant for the town meeting. An article means an item of business that the town will take up. They may vary from the budget, which happens at the annual town meeting. That's one article. Maybe some capital issues, purchasing something, you know, building a school, that sort of thing. It may be a bylaw change, and there's some of those before us at town meeting.
Yeah, are there a certain number of articles that are required for every single warrant? Or?
Well, yeah, they're really, for the annual town meeting, there are 5 articles that are required. The election is the first article, so we've already gotten past Article 1, so we have 24 to go. Then town meeting has said that every town meeting will have an article for reports to be given to town meeting. The annual town meeting, the State of the Town report is given by the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. That's a typical one, but there may be others. Instructional motions, an opportunity for town meeting to instruct various officers of the town on various issues. Instructional motions are non-binding, but certainly taken very seriously. Amending the capital improvements program is on every town meeting warrant, because our bylaws say that you can't spend any money for capital projects unless it appears in the capital improvements program. The other one that's required to be on the annual town meeting warrant is the annual budget for next year. And I'm sorry, there is one other. At the annual town meeting, by our charter, we have to have an article to remove town meeting members who have not attended at least half of the town meeting sessions the previous year. And the idea is if somebody's elected but they're not participating, then vacate that position and get somebody else in who, you know, who will participate. So.
Well, what I wanted to do is actually I wanted to take this brief moment as a plug for Brenda Smith, a producer here at Reading Community Television, also on the board of directors, has a Town Meeting 101. She's been calling it. I believe that is the formal title of Town Meeting 101, and that will be showing tonight and also various other times too. So right in time to get folks ready for that town meeting. It'll review the things that you had just reviewed, Peter, and also talk about some other things, and it also features our town moderator, Alan Foles. So I think really just as the education part of Reading Community Television and Access Television, hopefully folks will get a chance to take a look at that and come up to speed. So.
Now, we're not going to have a chance tonight to go through all of the articles. It will probably take us 3 evenings at town meeting to do all of that. But I would like to remind residents that everybody in town gets this publication. It's called Reading Notes, and actually this comes out tomorrow to the public. We get our advanced copies in Town Hall a couple of days early. And in this issue of Reading Notes, there's a summary of the annual town meeting, and it talks about what just in a one line, what each article at town meeting is. So. And if you have interest, copies of the warrant report are at the library and so forth. Now, these people who are elected at town meeting, they don't just kind of show up and kind of vote things off the top of their head. For this annual town meeting, they each get a copy of a book like this. This is the annual town meeting warrant report. And in this is the article, each article in detail, and it's written in somewhat legalistic language because these have to be reviewed by the Attorney General's office and sometimes bond counsel. These are legally binding actions by the town. And then there's a background and some graphs and maps to try to explain what's in it. The yellow sections in this report are the annual operating budget for the town, the proposed operating budget. This report is 230 pages long. For town meeting members to really be aware of and vote on everything before them, they really need to go through this. So if you're running for town meeting or if you're talking to a town meeting member, they do a little bit of work to do their work at town meeting. What I'd like to do is just kind of run through the warrant articles. I'd actually just like to run through some of the highlights on them. There is an amendment to the FY99 budget, the current year's budget. It's about a $350,000 amendment involving a whole lot of line items. Some are pluses, some are minuses.
Okay.
The biggest areas we need additional money is the school department's about $200,000 for special needs and for building maintenance. Fire department has about a $30,000 need for salaries for overtime. Snow and ice is about a $100,000 overrun this year. So those are the kinds of things that are in that that budget, and town meeting, obviously, because they appropriate money, needs to act on that. The next one of major interest is the FY 2000 budget, and we have a slide, I think, that's a summary of the budget, which we're going to show. The budget as proposed by FinCom is a $47.5 million budget, and that's a lot of money. About 2/3 of that is raised directly by property taxes in the community, and you can see the summary actually from 1997 through 2000. Our budgets are always more constrained by the revenues that we have than they are dictated by what our needs are.
Okay.
The needs expressed by the town, the school department, are actually $1.5 million more than we're going to be funding this year. And they're all very real needs. We may, question the priorities and so forth, but, it's things like additional firefighters to help cut down on overtime. It's not a total savings, but it would help cut down on overtime. It's things like additional programs in the schools to help support some of the bands and the drama clubs and the extracurricular activities. It's important stuff. But we can't afford to do all of it, and so we have to set priorities. The budget for the town government, this is the police, the fire, the public works, the library, all that sort of thing, is $11.8 million, almost $12 million. And it represents an increase of about 4.5% from previous. If you take out the new cost of the condo trash pickup, it would be actually about 4% increase. School department is about a 6.25% increase. It's a $22 million budget. Not really doing any new programs, nor is the town budget doing any new programs. There's no new firefighters. There's no large additional sums for books in the library and that sort of thing. It's basically maintaining what we have.
Okay.
Capital expenditures are up a little bit. In order to balance the budget, the Finance Committee actually recommended cutting out 2 major capital expenses. And you're not cutting them out, you're just deferring them, because one of them is to buy a new fire truck. We know that we're going to buy that new fire truck. Maybe we can wait till next year, maybe not. But it will have to be done at some point. And the other is to take the old police station down and build a parking lot there. So that's the budget, which is sort of the main focus of the annual town meeting. Every community in Massachusetts does their annual budget at the same time of year. It's April or May.
So I'm anticipating this probably one evening in itself?
Yes, we would anticipate, it's always hard to judge, but I would expect that we start Monday night on the 12th, and we'll do all of the reports and articles leading up to the budget, but not start the budget late, but probably the following Thursday, the 15th, devote that primarily to the budget. And then we take a week off for school vacation week and Patriots Day and so forth, and come back then the following week, the 26th, and probably finish up the 26th, I would imagine.
Okay.
Another article that we have on is Article 18, which is a bylaw amendment. So this is the town meeting exercising its legislative authority to pass laws. And this is sort of an internal law, in a sense, for town meeting, in that it would change the election day by moving it back 2 weeks, moving it 2 weeks later in the year. So instead of March 23rd, it would have been actually this last Tuesday. And then it takes the town meeting first session, instead of being the 12th of April, if this was in place this year, it would have been the 26th. And the idea is to try to give our candidates a little bit warmer weather to campaign in, to give ourselves all a little bit more time to do the budget, and to not have the break in town meeting by the vacation week and the holiday, to try to push that all out after all the religious holidays and so forth, and try to preserve that.
Logistics design of getting town meeting accomplished.
That was, we've tried that before at town meeting and it hasn't passed, so I wouldn't have any guarantees this time around. Article 20 is kind of an interesting land transaction. We always, in Reading somehow we wind up with a lot of land transactions, but we have a new cemetery called Wood End Cemetery up on Franklin Street in your and my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the way the land is owned, some of it's conservation land, some of it's cemetery land, so we want to straighten out some boundaries. So I don't know if we have the slide up, I guess not, but we're going to be straightening out the boundaries of the Wood End Cemetery as part of that project. We have some other articles that are dealing with vacating easements. You know, sometimes people think of the government as, particularly the local government, as being this sort of amorphous entity and not having, not being able to do anything that may make common sense because the government won't let you do it. And we have a couple of articles this time on. One is to vacate an easement down on Warren Avenue. It's a 30-foot wide sewer easement. The property owner wants to expand their house, but the sewer easement's in the way. But the sewer line's not right there. I mean, it's set back about 15 or 20 feet from the house, so they've asked us to vacate it. So our Public Works Department looked at it and said, well, we can live with that. It's not a big deal. So we have a warrant article vacated. So, you can ask your local government to do things, and some things we can't do, like waive your property tax bill or things like that.
Oh, darn.
But sometimes things like this where it makes sense to do it, we try to be fairly practical and common sense about things, and really do try to accommodate people. So we always have some articles like that. One of the articles, which may take a while to talk about, is Article 19. And again, it's a petitioned article from residents of the community who want to change our zoning. Let me just make sure I'm right about the number. Yes, it's Article 19. They live next to an agricultural area that's trying to expand, and it's a small property and trying to expand onto another small property. And state law says that the minimum agricultural size is 5 acres. So they want to change our local bylaw to be consistent with the state law. And it has a very direct effect on them personally and their neighbors. And they've asked how they could try to get something done. And we've, whether we agree with it or not, whether I agree with it or the selectmen who actually do happen to agree with them unanimously. But that's not the point. The point is that there is an opportunity to petition your local government to get something done that you think needs to be done. And I think that's important, and I think a representative town meeting may in some ways encourage that more than a city council sort of being a little bit more distant from the general public. Most people in this community know a town meeting member or two. I mean, it's your neighbors. It's
Yeah, it seems as if sometimes if one is not aware of how town meeting functions, that they think mostly of the budget and other things that don't directly necessarily impact us directly, that they can feel and touch and go visit and whatever else. So, but you can do stuff that directly impacts the individual immediately.
Well, and of course the budget, it's disappointing in a way because the number of people you get involved in, from the general public, aren't a lot, but the budget really affects everybody in this community. If nothing else, it affects you and your taxes you pay. But it affects all the services that you get locally. I mean, it affects the number of books in the library and the class sizes in the schools and how fast your street gets plowed and all those sorts of things. So it really affects you more than the state and federal government budgets do in many ways.
Yeah, well, we have a phone call. So, okay. Hello, welcome to Ask the Town Manager here on Reading Community Television. Do you have a question or comment for Peter tonight?
Well, I thought I'd take the liberty of calling again.
Oh, hi, welcome back.
I had one comment on the police traffic enforcement in town.
Yes.
And I just sort of ran through the numbers. I heard something like 5,500 tickets a year.
Right.
And if you do the math, that comes down to about 15 a day. And that doesn't sound like very many to me. Although 5,500 sounds like a lot.
Yes.
But I can go uptown in a half an hour and I can probably find 15 violators, that you'd like to see stopped. But one observation that I might comment on is you hear about quotas, and it may be that, toward the end of the month or whenever, if they have a quota system, they want to make X number of stops, they may use less discretion, trying to get the numbers made by the end of the month or whatever the time frame may be. And I just think, in all matters that sometimes, you can stop somebody and with more discretion as opposed to having a quota system, you would maybe find, that there are some situations where somebody, maybe they ran the yellow light a little sooner than they should have, and they might have let them off. But in a quota type scenario, they say, geez, we've got to get 10 tickets today, you've got to make your 50 for the month or so, or whatever. And there would just be less discretion sometimes allowed under that type of circumstance.
Okay, we'd like to allow Peter to comment, and
Sure.
thank you for the call.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Well, two things. To put 5,500 tickets into perspective, it is by orders of magnitude more than any other community around us, even the city of Woburn. And that's a measure not of necessarily the quality or that's necessarily a good thing. It's a measure of the activity that we do. And the major police complaint that we get in Reading, if you watch a selectmen's meeting or if you answer my phone, is traffic. Cut-through traffic, people not stopping, just the volumes and levels and speed of traffic. We talked about that a little bit on the Mill Street Bridge. Maybe we need to all slow down a little bit and enjoy the view and not be so worried about getting up to Concord Street in North Reading. And I know none of us do that, but that's kind of a nice thing to think about. So we issue more tickets than any other community around by far. But more than the quantity of tickets that the department is concerned about, they're concerned about the quality of the tickets. Is it a good ticket? Are half our tickets thrown out in court? No. Very, very few of our tickets are not upheld if they even get to court. Most are paid through the Violations Bureau, but they are good quality arrests. As town manager, I will tell you that if there were 100 drunk drivers a week in Reading and we arrested all of them, I would have no problem at all with that, and I wouldn't feel we're picking on people. That's something that you want to get off the road. So there's a lot of emphasis spent on DUI, driving under the influence, and doing enforcement in that area. The Reading Police Department does not have a quota system. There's no police officer has been disciplined for writing too many or too few tickets. The number of tickets written is one measure, I think, to the chief and to the administration, the police department, as to how active somebody may be, and whether they are just riding around a police vehicle all day or whether they're actually getting out there and doing something in their time out there. But that's not a quota. Nobody's ever told you have to do 50 tickets this month, each police officer, because they don't. But we do keep statistics on it because it is a measure of how active somebody may be. On the other hand, if an officer came in and talked to the chief and the chief said, it doesn't look like you've done very much this week in terms of the tickets that you've written, and the officer says, well, I issued 17 warnings, I was involved in, one of those was a drunk driving arrest that took 3 hours. That's all understood and appreciated. So we pay attention to quality. There is no quota, and people, for example, on some streets, West Street and Havel Street particularly, will say, we need more enforcement, we need more enforcement. But you look at the number of stops and tickets that are issued there, and it's amazing. There are a tremendous number of them. The other piece of that is, of course, you look at the people who are stopped, and they think we're issuing at least one too many.
That's right. You're being too tough.
So it's sort of a no-win situation. I will tell you, one of the measures of success of a policing program in a community, and traffic stops has a lot to do with it, is what your crime rate is. And I think Reading, historically, going back a number of years, and currently has one of the very lowest crime rates in suburban Boston. And if you look at where we're located, we shouldn't have. We're very vulnerable in terms of mass transit, two major highways, easy to get into, easy to get out of, and yet we have a very low crime rate. Our police department is very visible out there, and visibility means, yes, you're stopping people for traffic violations and so forth. But any textbook on good policing will tell you that that's part of a very good, effective community policing program and keeping the crime rate low. It's not that they're perfect. I'm sure there are some tickets they write and arrests they make that are not the best. I'm sure they miss some. Just because you put on a badge and walk around as a Reading police officer doesn't mean that you're a god or that you're perfect. But by and large, they do an excellent job.
Okay, great. Thank you, and thank you again, caller, for
Yes.
the call. Very much appreciated. So, I'd like to return back to the warrant articles, and I don't know. Actually, I think we talked about 19, but I didn't know if what other ones that you have on
Well,
your
19,
your
I
hit
think,
parade.
was a very interesting one because it's a petition-initiated one. As I said, we wind up with some land issues. There's one, and I think we have an overhead of this, Article 23 is a situation up on Grove Street out past the compost center. And it's a location where the town has a gravel easement across a private property. This was apparently...
How is a gravel easement used?
Well, it's an easement to mine gravel. It was a
mine
right
gravel,
given to the
okay.
town that said, in this area, obviously the property owner at the time sold it to the town, you may mine gravel out of this area. And in fact, the town did mine some gravel out of that area.
Okay.
Well, it's a 2 or 3 acre parcel of land, and you can see at the bottom of it, there's the dotted line, dotted square right along Grove Street. That's the gravel easement that we own. And the property owner, who is a developer, has asked us to vacate the gravel easement because he wants to put in a cul-de-sac and 5 lots on the property. And you know, one of the first questions I ask is, how much are you willing to pay us to vacate that easement? And they came back and said, well, the maximum value of the gravel in the easement is about $5,000. But the other perspective on this lot is that if we didn't vacate the easement, you can't get as many building lots on it, and therefore there's value in addition to that.
Okay.
So, you know, if we can't reach agreement on price, you know, then we might just indefinitely postpone the article. We'll keep the gravel easement, and the developer may or may not be able to develop the property.
What article is this? What number?
This is Article 23.
Oh, 23, okay.
So that will be on probably Thursday the 26th, I would imagine. And town meeting, in order to vacate any land right that the town holds, town meeting action is required. So that's why it comes to town meeting. And you know, not to speak ill of town meeting at all, they tend to be a little stingy about giving up any rights or ownership that the town has to any property.
It's okay. It's good to have
so-
inventory, so.
Yeah, well, and again, I don't think, you know, I doubt that we would ever go into that area in Grove Street and start mining gravel, but it is a right that we have, and it is an encumbrance on the property. And certainly if that were the case of any individual, they would want to be compensated appropriately for it. So we're having some discussion with the property owner on that. But always at town meeting, it seems like there's some land issues that come up, you know, whether it's a gravel easement or one of the articles that we're actually going to be indefinitely postponing is a property owner that abuts the Parker Middle School property and is interested in selling us a piece of that because it's surplus to their needs. We haven't agreed on price, so that's why it's being indefinitely postponed.
Okay.
But you know, land articles are always interesting.
Okay, well, it's we're just about out of time for tonight, and of course, there are other articles that are probably just equally interesting and exciting if folks can get a sense. Now, just real quickly, where can folks in town see this same booklet if they're not a town meeting member?
This book is available to all town meeting members. They have to go to the police station to pick it up. But if you come into town hall, you can certainly get a look at a copy of it. We don't have copies to give away, but we do have counter copies, and there is at least one copy in the public library that you can go in and take a look at. And the interesting thing is, this is not, you know, the Federal Communication Commission's rules and regulations that you'd find on the federal level, and it's not a very arcane and cumbersome act of the state legislature. This is local government. It's right here in the community where you are. It affects you. Your neighbors are involved in making those decisions. And yeah, I think it's a real opportunity to get involved and make a difference.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Peter. And I want to thank everybody at home for joining us on this special inaugural edition of Ask the Town Manager here on Reading Community Television, Channel 9. And we'll see you next time.